We have got an awesome lineup here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get rolling now. I'm hoping our guest, our first, well, we have actually three guests on in unison tonight here. Our first guest is UFO researcher Wilbur Allen. Wilbur's been on the program before. His website is amazing. It's called UFODC.com. You've got to go check it out. It's unbelievable, absolutely believable. Wilbur Allen is a former White House employee and Air Force One engineer under U.S. Presidents Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. He's been on many television programs. We're going to let him talk about all kinds of different stuff. But as I've mentioned Wilbur so many times on so many different programs, and that has led to our other guests that are going to be on the show at the same time, is Eric Hartwig. Eric's been on before. He's had an interest in ufology in which he feels it's been validated after viewing the Disclosure Project's May 9th, 2001 National Press Club Conference in Washington, D.C., confirming the existence of UFOs. In 2012, Eric and many other people witnessed a UFO during a sunset off the coast of Rincon, Puerto Rico. He lives in Boston, where he sets up 4 skywatching cameras every clear evening to record all overnight sky footage showing meteors, satellites, and all kinds of aircraft over his location. His partner and a good friend of mine, Bill Forte, originally from New York City, specifically the Bronx, where he had his first sighting of an unknown object in 1995, he has seen what he describes as a boomerang or triangular-shaped craft, which was reported to Peter Davenport at the National UFO Center. He also had a second sighting while fishing off the East Coast shore at Montauk, New York. Since then, Bill has moved to upstate New York, where his interest in unknown craft in the skies resurfaced and is currently a sky watcher. Bill, as Eric, has 4 cameras set up, and on a nightly basis they are recording tons of data. Again, as I've talked about Wilbur so many times and mentioned Wilbur to all of our listeners, I said I've got to get him back on the show. So without any delay, let's go ahead and bring these guys on one at a time. All right. Okay, Wilbur, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I've got 1 bar of power. Verizon is on the blink in Washington, D.C. We've had a little issue with both Verizon and Comcast, so I'll try to keep with you as much as I can.
Okay.
How you guys doing?
Doing good. We've got Bill on the line. Let's see if we got Eric here. Eric, are you there?
Yeah, I'm on the line.
Okay, I guess we've got all 3. Wow, the miracle of technology, guys.
Sounds great. Definitely is on my side a miracle. I can't believe I'm talking.
Well, Wilbur, we hear you just fine. And Wilbur, I want to thank you for taking the time tonight. As I mentioned before, I've mentioned I had you on the show about a year ago. You've got so much going on, and my good friend Bill and Eric, who are on the line here as well, are sky watchers. They have high-def cameras set up, and I asked them both to join me tonight. Because they're so into it, and you're the master of this. How are things going for you? It sounds like you've got a lot of projects going on.
I got a few things going on. I'm trying to make things a little different with a change of perspective, using a larger millimeter lens, so to speak, because I wanted to get deeper into space and do more research regarding the moon and UFOs. Other than that, I'm doing the same thing on a nightly basis, and on a nightly basis I get continually the same anomalous objects I've been getting now for the past 2.5 years.
Very interesting. Can you give? I gave a little bit of your bio, but for our listeners that haven't heard you before, can you give us a little bit of your backstory? How you got into? Of course, you worked for the White House. You're a photographer, a professional photographer. How did you get into this whole ufology thing? And I understand something happened to you at a very young age.
I was visited by a group of extraterrestrials as a child at a base called Skelthorpe in England, and it's interesting that those entities that basically visited me, which I'll use the word visit instead of abduct, but they visited me, and on a periodic basis they would constantly visit me. And, it's interesting that what I was able to deal with in terms of the implant that they put in me, it caused all kinds of things to happen, including objects to come out of the sky and land in front of me. So I think, without a doubt, what I experienced as a child is the direct result of what I'm doing now.
Wow, amazing. Well, and when we had you on the show last time, I know you're I followed so much of your work, Wilbur. You can't get out there just one or two nights. You've got to hit it hard, and the amount of frames and the amount of photos that you take, and then the dissection of stuff is amazing. I mean, it's a science in itself.
It's almost, if you're going to do it, a lot of people think that you go out there and you set your camera up and you get a picture. It doesn't quite work that easy. On a nightly basis, I'm shooting anywhere from 60 to 90,000 frames. And, you have to look at the probabilities associated to anything that's random, especially a UFO. And with the randomness associated to it, if you set up a camera in a fixed position, and chances are, even though it is random, you will catch a UFO, without a doubt.
Right. Now, Eric and Bill, you guys have we've had you on the program before. You both use high-definition camera systems, correct?
Yes. And I have to absolutely agree with what Wilbur just said. On any given night, I mean, obviously we get the usual objects of the sky. You get the planes, the satellites, the meteors, space junk, etc., even bugs. But once in a while, you will capture an object and say, whoa, what was that? Like recently, I sent it to Wilbur. I actually caught a rod, which I never captured before, and I was like, wow, that looks very similar to what Wilbur's getting over there in D.C. So
exactly,
he's absolutely, he's absolutely correct. If you have the equipment set up and you take the time to do it and you do it properly, you will get something interesting that you catch in the sky.
Now, Eric, you've got the same setup as Bill, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And same thing with you. Are you catching some unique stuff?
Yeah, we get some pretty cool stuff now and then. It's kind of rare. On any given good night with no clouds, you usually get right now at least 10 hours of footage. So on 4 cameras, you're talking about 40 hours of footage to go through the next day. It's pretty tedious.
Mm-hmm. Now, Wilbur, do you break with yours? Do you actually shoot individual frames, or do you, like Bill and Eric do you record in movie mode? How do you go ahead and capture?
I'm shooting. It depends on the type of lens that I'm using, but generally what I do is I go for the higher shutter speed, 60 frames per second, and I'm getting 60 frames per second at night in absolute darkness, of course, at 200,000 ISO. That's what you would expect at such a high ISO rating. But it's just like he said, you shoot hours and hours and hours of video, and in that stream of video, without a doubt, there is a very strong possibility that you will catch an anomalous object that should not be in that airspace.
Right, and the other thing that you said when you were on the program last time that really stuck with me is that a lot of these craft, a lot of these things that you're finding, you can sit there and record with video and you don't even see it. It's when you kind of get down to that frame by frame analysis, that's where the stuff is moving so fast you have to capture it frame by frame just to see it.
It is indeed the case, and from what I was gathering from the data that I've gathered thus far, is that these objects have the ability to enter and exit our airspace in an unconventional manner, and the manner that I think that they're using is a wormhole-type technology that was discussed by Dr. Mitchell, who was the lunar module pilot for Apollo 14, but is essentially Stargate wormhole technology, what I'm photographing here with these objects materializing into the video and flying through the stream. It says to me that they're entering at will, and there is no way and there is no technology that we have thus far that would be able to detect them as they enter into the airspace,
right,
or where they enter into the airspace.
Wilbur, I have a question. Do you think that any of these wormholes are located over, like, military installations or even the White House?
I think they have fixed positions because, for example, I use the top of my house, which is 7 blocks from the White House, and I shoot 90 degrees straight up, and I'm getting the same objects nightly. And, when you look at it, I'm in restricted airspace, P53, and the objects that I'm getting should not be there. And based on the video that I'm getting, these objects materialize into the airspace from out of nowhere, and they materialize, or decloak, so to speak.
Right, right. Have you caught with your with all the photos you've taken? I know that, you know, when people talk about seeing, you guys all hit on a really good point, and you've mentioned this before. People sometimes, you know, when they talk about seeing a UFO, I think it kind of, you know, somebody that doesn't necessarily chase these things or do the kind of work that you three are doing, they sit there and they often think about, well, it's going to be that flying saucer that's, you know, a couple hundred yards ahead. They don't seem to realize, a lot of people don't realize that it's this micro stuff in the sky, the little tiny things, they're just up so high. There's a lot of activity there.
Well, you can consider smaller objects, but they're not small if you look at them comparatively speaking, because what we may see is the size of an orange. Inside, the size of that orange may be as large as New York City. So we see something small in the outside, but in reality it may be far from the realities of things.
Eric, did you have a question, or Bill, was that one of you?
Yeah, what I was going to say is, when you look at it through the camera and you have it zoomed up, obviously it's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't catch with the naked eye. But when you see all these objects that are going on above us, I think people need to pay more attention to what's going on above. Also, it doesn't help when the media creates a mockery of the whole UFO background. You know, that doesn't help. I think it's something that should be taken very seriously.
Without a doubt.
Well, I agree, because, you know, I'm 7 blocks from the White House, and the White House, their position on ET and ET cover-up is that it does not exist. Now, wait a minute. I'm in the same airspace. I'm 7 blocks from the White House itself, and my data says it does exist. But who do you believe in a situation like this, a politician or the data coming off of the camera? I'd be inclined to agree with the data coming off the camera than a politician whose job is to lie to you.
Yeah.
Wilbur, you never had a conversation off the record with anybody that lives in the D.C. area as far as a politician or anyone in government?
You know, I'm a former White House engineer, and I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of my supervisors in the White House were concerned about it. But, you know, a person's belief on a subject matter is one thing compared to a group as a whole. And in the case where a person is an employee of the White House, they're inclined to go with the opinions of the administration versus their personal opinions. So, you know, it's hard to say with what goes on where the truth is and where the truth is going to come from. And in most cases, it will not come from the politicians because they are trained not to tell you the truth.
Right, right. Well, you know, Wilbur, with all your experience, you know, with your background and working at the White House and being a part of Air Force One, I mean, and being close with the presidents, when you bring up these types of subjects, I mean, obviously, let's be real, you got to have kind of that, if you want to call it, that inner circle of people. When you talk to these people, do they look at you funny, or do some just say, hey, you know what, I believe you, but I can't, you know, I'm going to keep my mouth shut, I got to keep my job? Is it just a really sticky situation?
It's a sticky situation. A lot of people don't want to talk because they have their pensions at stake.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, there are things here where you're being threatened with your livelihood if you say something, and a lot of people do not want to lose their livelihood because they work for it. And, you know, the government has a way of making things happen, and your pension can easily disappear.
Right,
just like
right.
your job can disappear and your credibility can disappear, because what they do is they try to make it seem as if that person who makes that claim, if they have nothing substantial to support it, they make them seem like they're psychologically and emotionally unstable, which is not the case. And this is why we are, like those guests you have on your radio show now, who have the technology that generates this proof that substantiates our claims. We just have to keep going forward with what we're doing and showing the evidence and let the evidence speak for itself versus letting a politician speak for us.
Gotcha. With you, you were just when we talked, when we emailed back and forth. You were doing a conference just a couple weeks ago, correct? Or you?
I did the New Jersey Paranormal and UFO Conference, Consciousness Conference in New Jersey. Yes.
Are there people bringing a lot of film and footage to you, Wilbur?
Well, it's interesting. I lectured with Jaime Maussan, who is a Mexican journalist.
Right.
I'm sure you're all familiar with. And the footage that he presented was a 100% match to the footage that I presented. But his footage is in Mexico and Russia. My footage is exclusively in Washington, D.C. So it said to me that, geographically at least, we're all getting the same thing, which indicates to me that whoever is visiting us, it is the same technology everywhere.
You know, Wilbur, I wanted to ask you, and I was going to mention it to you when we were emailing back and forth. Here in Utah, in Salt Lake, and of course in Colorado, we're getting, as of recent, we're getting a lot of sightings. Actually, the media is willing to even go out and they're talking about it. Southern Colorado, we saw a lot of stuff here in Utah. Things that appeared to be actually what was caught on Fox 13 News here was what a lot of people initially thought was kind of a meteor. But then when they took a closer look at it, it appeared to be maybe a meteor, but something firing at it or shooting something at it, some sort of like a beam firing at the thing. And this is being reported in Colorado as well, these big pillowy, fluffy type of things in the air. And then, of course, Bill is captured a lot of stuff, and I think you guys, conversed on Facebook back and forth, some kind of unique-looking big orb type things.
Yeah, they're here without a doubt. I mean, it's all consistent. All I could say is, just based on the physical evidence, if you look at everybody's stuff, they're here, without a doubt.
Right. Well, there's...
Pat,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Pat. Pat, someone in the chat room is mentioning something that's pretty interesting. Wilbur, why do you think that these type of objects are being seen over the Capitol in pretty much the most defended airspace? Do you think it could be some type of military tech?
No, I think what they're doing is they're letting us know that they're here, and it's their way of disclosing the events without being overtly obvious with it, which is obviously the case. But, they're here, and they're showing up more frequently. And it's interesting, with all the technology that's out there, we're going to start seeing the same things. Everyone who's shooting these things, who's capturing these things, are all capturing the same objects.
Well, and there's a lot of activity in D.C. I mean, it's been reported over the years for such a long time, but yet it sure seems to get shunned by any sort of media outlet there at all, or again, even any sort of government people.
Especially 1952.
Yeah, 1952 flat.
The event that happened in 1952 was July 16, 1952, and I captured the same event, July 16, 2002, from the same location, and my samples clearly showed without a doubt the same objects from 1952 are still in our airspace. So we have a sample which is taken 50 years apart, all showing the same data, the same information, the same event, and no one does a thing about it.
Wilbur, I'm posting a picture of the July 16, 2002 green fireball that you captured over the Capitol. You mentioned that the Apollo 11 crew in 68 or 9.
They got it on 16 millimeter film outside the command module. They got it on 16 millimeter film on the surface of the moon. Then NASA has been reporting all of these new luminous green objects on all of the mission files, and it's registered clearly on all of the NASA mission files. But yet, when I submitted my 2002 sample to NASA did absolutely nothing.
Do you think they're aware of it, Wilbur? But it's just, it would be such a can of worms to open up. I mean, obviously with people with, everyone's carrying a smartphone that's got decent, for the most part, pretty decent, as far as a camera phone, they're pretty decent. People are capturing a lot of stuff. Do you think it's the religious implications? What do you think it is? Or do you think it's when you talk about coming out with a conspiracy, now everybody looks like a liar. What's your thoughts on some of this stuff?
Well, I only can speak from the data itself, and the data says, without a doubt, we're being visited. So, my standpoint is I'm not going to sit here and tell you a bunch of BS based on my physical evidence. My physical evidence says, yes, indeed, it does exist. So, I don't know where else to read it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and make up anything. I'm not going to sit here and tell you something that's a lie. I'm just going to show you the physical evidence, just like the rest of your guests show you the physical evidence. How are we making things up? Here's the proof. Right. How do we make it up? I mean, I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm not going to tell you where they come from. I'm not going to tell you their agenda. I don't know any of that, but I can show you how they get here. I can show you what they look like.
The orbs, are the orbs, have you been capturing a lot of that stuff for a long time, Wilbur? Or
most of my samples are in 4 categories: orbs, spheres, luminous cylinders, triangular objects shaped like pyramids. I mean, it's consistent with a list that I have on my website, UFODC.com, that shows the variations of UFOs that people have reported. But the variations that are being reported are consistent on a daily basis, which indicates to me that whatever these are, wherever they are, they're from the same level of technology.
Right. What do you guys? I'd like to ask all three of you, these rods. What do you think these rods are?
I think those are a camera
from another galaxy, honestly, because they have no consistent characteristics of anything that's known to man. And I've got samples to show rods vanish and disappear in the video screen just like a UFO.
Eric, what do you think?
Well, I'm sure there are cigarette rod type craft. I've seen some pretty good footage, sometimes on TV documentaries. But I think in a lot of cases, especially with analog cameras, they seem to form rods out of a fast-moving, either a bug or it can be a light in the sky. Some cameras see a rod, they project a rod.
But not the digitals.
Maybe the digitals too. That's something I don't know. I know we're getting a few now with our analog cameras. Whether it's because they're analog, I haven't really compared it to a digital image yet.
How about you, Bill? What's your thought on these rods?
Well, we've, like Eric has just mentioned, but I have a little slightly different take. We've captured plenty of planes, and we know how to adjust our lenses pretty sharp. And I just caught one object that looked like a rod. It looked totally different from anything that I've captured. And we experimented with our cameras. We raised the exposure a bit to try to raise the lighting. And Eric might have had an experience because of that, the objects that were trailing more light. But I kept mine at the setting that they're at. And this was a cylinder-like type object that was going across the sky. And it didn't have no navigation lights. It didn't have any other detail. And like I said, when we capture other footage, you can see distinctly that it's a plane, a jet, or other type of object in the sky. This thing was cylindrical, and it was long, and it was moving along progressively at a station, like a good, steady pace. So, to be honest, it looks like a rod or a cylinder-type craft to me.
Yeah, very good.
It's interesting that most of the people who are capturing these objects are capturing them with, like you said, analog film or video that is 24 frames or 30 frames per second. Now, I'm sitting these rods at 60 frames per second, and what I'm capturing is completely inconsistent with what people say they are. The anomalies themselves are so abstract, so to speak. I've got samples that show when they do fly by, they have completely translucent qualities associated to them, and that's uncharacteristic of anything that we would call a bat or an insect or anything that would be known to man that would fly by at night that is totally inconsistent with that.
Gotcha. We got a couple questions for you. Bill, do you want to ask some of these, Eric, or what do you want to do?
I'll let Eric go first.
All right. Eric, do you have some questions for Wilbur?
No, actually, I don't have any at the moment, no.
Okay. Well, one of the questions that came in said, Wilbur, can you tell us about Tornado Alley, Twisted Believers that aired on the Weather Channel and the energy harnessed by UFOs? And do you think that the crash in Roswell may have been a craft trying to tap into the thunderstorm's energy that was reported that evening?
Well, it's interesting. We did the research in Kokomo, Indiana for Twisted Believers, Tornado Alley on NBC Universal's Weather Channel. And the data indicated, without a doubt, that in the area where there was extensive damage associated to tornadoes were anomalous objects like the red pyramid that flew by my crew and I. It flew by so fast it was 100% silent, and it was absolutely inconsistent with the commercial aircraft and military aircraft that were in the air at that time. So without a doubt, I know for a fact that whatever these objects are, they do use our natural resources to refuel, and what better place to refuel your spacecraft than an electrically discharged storm?
Right. Do you think that, and I've heard other ufologists mention that maybe it was because that night that it crashed, there was a lot of thunderstorms in the air. Maybe it was hit by lightning.
Well, there had been a few things that were reported at that time. One of the things was reported was this new radar technology that was being experimented on by the United States military, and there's a very strong possibility that the radar was responsible for jamming propulsion technology of those Roswell spacecraft, and indeed made them crash. So there's too much speculation associated to it. If they had the ability to absorb energy from a storm, then it wouldn't be the storm that caused them to crash. It would have to be something outside of that, and that outside interference would have to be man-made.
Right.
Wilbur, what is the indigenous organic energy that attracts UFOs during these storms?
I'm not really sure, but I'm sure it is the massive electrical discharge or the massive electrical buildup that's associated to the storms. When you think about it, when a thunderstorm or an electrical discharge is discharged from a cloud, its energy output is massive. And then, we have to look at that massive output is something that would be of interest to these extraterrestrial objects because it is indeed a high energy power source.
Do you think that they've got, these crafts, do you think that they've got enough, that they've got the technology to steer clear of this stuff or be able to navigate through it for the most part?
I think they don't navigate through it because they're using that energy source to get what they want in terms of their power supply. So, for a fact that if they are indeed around those storm fronts and they're gathering that energy as they are gathering that energy, then it would be logical to assume that they're not there just randomly. They're there for a reason, and that reason is they're harvesting that energy.
So you think it may be the kinetic energy that they're getting from the wind or static electricity or some type of thermal?
Electricity, it's massive energy buildup. It's electrical discharge from static electricity. Look what a stun gun can do to a person. A 9-volt battery that's bumped up to 100,000 volts, it's technically the same effect, essentially speaking, when an object enters into an electrically charged cloud.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Another question, Bill, I'm going to steal one of yours. Have you done any further research that to support your theory that UFOs stay in the area where a tornado is formed? He was having a lot of problems.
Verizon, yeah.
Yeah, with Verizon out on the East Coast, Verizon and Comcast.
Wilbur, can I toll in on the wormhole thing?
Sure.
I was kind of holding that. As far as the wormholes, I think we're looking at how they get here, how do they travel interstellar, and I think two key points was Wilbur brought up the materialization vehicles and also the insides of the craft being much larger inside than outside. And I think those both point to I think it's a dimensional issue. I think they transverse dimensions to the unseen, to the naked eye, and they traverse space-time time from their planet, whatever, they get here and then they materialize.
I agree with Eric.
So you think that what we're okay? So is that when we're talking about size? I mean, as far as what we physically perceive as something small could be something quite large.
I think it's both. Like there's another side, and the dimensions there are larger. In other words, so when you enter into one of these craft, and it appears larger on the inside, you're shifting into you're somewhat traversing the dimension itself when you walk inside.
Bill, did you drop off too? Wow, both these. Yeah, I know they're saying I don't know if it's affected up in your area, but I know Wilbur was having a hard time. He said he was barely getting one bar. Bill, if you're there, go ahead and call back in. Let's see what we get. Bill, you there?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Did we drop you, or you just fell off?
I don't know. That was kind of weird, just like Wilbur did a few seconds ago.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm going to try to. I'm going to go ahead. If you guys will just kind of converse a little bit, I'm going to see if I can pick up Wilbur again real quick while you guys are talking here.
Yeah. So, Eric.
Yeah.
So, have you captured anything lately? Because the weather over here has been like terrible.
It has been. The weather's been pretty bad. I'm not recording tonight. I didn't record last night. I have footage from several days ago that I've been looking at. Before that, I made a few of my old-style videos just quickly going through all activity during the night, showing a lot of planes, a lot of meteors going by, some satellites, the usual stuff, which is a little boring to look at, but I figure what the heck, I'll just document it, make these quick videos of each night. And but really, I think the last cool thing I got was that meteor. Probably that must have been almost a month ago, 3 weeks ago. I got a pretty good meteor that really expanded to a very large white bright light and then contract down again. It was pretty cool.
I'm back, guys. I've tried to call Wilbur several times during that, and we cannot reach him. It just goes directly to voicemail. So maybe when we take our NBC news break, we'll go ahead and try to pick him back up again. For those listeners that are listening, had a problem with it sounds like Comcast and Verizon out on the East Coast is had a lot of outages this evening. So I don't know how the weather is out that way. I don't know if weather is part of the cause or not, but I know Wilbur was saying for the whole weekend it's been a major issue.
It's just cloudy here, and I'm in Boston.
Gotcha.
Yeah, same here.
So you got, let's and again, I apologize. We'll see if we can get Wilbur back on again. With all the stuff that you guys are picking up, are you seeing a lot of different types of craft? Are there a lot of different there a lot of, does they come in all shapes and sizes?
Actually, Eric, talk about the twins that we're catching quite a bit of.
Yeah, a lot of what we get, we believe, are meteors. They do have a tail on the back of them, but you don't see any flashing lights on them. So they're either a very high plane or something moving very fast. The trail, you can't always be too sure whether the trail you're seeing is an actual burning behind the object or is it a camera anomaly? Sometimes it varies. There's probably both. We're probably seeing both. But sometimes you see two of these traveling together, which makes it a little more peculiar. If this is actually a craft, it's hard to know exactly what it is. But if it's a craft, it's a little peculiar that there's two of them flying together. Could be a little more of an indication of a UFO. Could also be some small, stealth. A couple of fighter jets going to the other side of the world or something, headed towards the Middle East. Hard to tell. But
way up.
Those are kind of
way up there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, really up there.
And the twins and you say they're flying together?
Looks like a formation, yes.
Really?
Yeah, it almost looks like a formation. It's also quite possible, though. I don't know a lot about meteors at this point. I need to catch up on all kinds of facts about meteors. But we do see them. They can like explode and then have a big spark jolt out from a side, and the rest of it continues to burn up in a fast pattern. They could explode into multiple objects going forward and causing that effect. Or do meteors travel through our solar system together? I think that's true also, that there can be just a couple of meteors that are traveling side by side as they travel through the solar system.
Well, and that's the thing too, Eric, that out here with the stuff that's being observed in the skies over Salt Lake City and over Colorado, is people are thinking initially that they could potentially be meteors, but then what's been caught on video and actually has been brought up to the University of Utah. And some of the astrophysicists have looked at this stuff. They're like, well, yeah, it could be a meteor, it could be actually a large meteor, but what really concerned them, or interested them, I should say, was something behind them in what appears in very slow motion to be firing at them. So I don't know if it's a good old spaceship Star Wars type of fight, or if is it a friendly visitor or a craft that's trying to destroy these things so they won't cause damage like we saw in Russia.
Yeah, if I saw anything personally with my beliefs on the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials, if I saw something firing on something else, my initial thought would be, this is one of ours, whatever it is, and they've got their black ops secret craft and stuff like that. Chances are, if it was firing something, it would be something of ours, other than that very rare case where the military might send some kind of weapon up or something, and UFOs are actually known to shoot a plasma beam at a nuclear-armed rocket until it deactivates that nuke on the rocket.
Another thing is, too, a lot of people question exactly what the X-37B was doing in space for 2 years.
Yeah.
If we have something like that going on, who knows what else is going on up there that we're just unaware of?
Well, and what's pretty interesting about the X-30B is that, the X-37? Sorry, is that for such a long time it was just a mystery craft, and now it was. I know I had different guests on that supposedly had a little insight with NASA. No, nothing like, it's a prototype. But now here we find out, and the media and NASA came right out and said this thing's been flying up there for a couple of years.
Yeah, now that thing's got I noticed the picture of that it's got like a lot of black tiles on it. I think for the re-entry tiles.
Right.
I think it had to seem to have like a black shield. Is it possible? Have you heard of the Black Knight satellite? There's some pretty strange pictures. To me, the first thing that I think of when I see these pictures of this Black Knight satellite is the Batmobile. It's not like it's not a Batmobile, but it looks very strange as a satellite. It's this funny shaped black object. I'm wondering is it possible that X, whatever it is there, has been, if that could be an answer to what that Black Knight satellite is. Probably not.
So is it the Black Knight satellite? Is it a satellite that takes photos or pictures, or what is it?
It's just something that we see in a few NASA pictures. It was captured, I believe it's been captured various times, but it's a very strangely shaped, elongated black object that's been labeled on the internet as the the Black Knight satellite.
Interesting.
It's a mystery. I think I've even heard that it predates that it predates all our technology. That has been, I've heard rumors that it's been up there for thousands of years or something.
Do you believe it's manned or unmanned?
It could be manned. I don't know. You never know. It could have aliens in there. I have no idea.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, 13,000-year-old satellite.
Yeah. Is that what it says? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
may make correlations about our own moon as being artificial itself, too.
Maybe. Let's see. We got a caller calling, and let's see if this is Wilbur. Good evening. Welcome to K-Talk Radio.
Hey, it's Wilbur. I got cut off.
Oh, yeah. I tried to call you back a few times, and it just went right to voicemail every time.
Yeah, it's one bar. Now it went up to 4 bars, so.
We got you now, my friend.
All right, I'm here.
Thanks. Yeah, I called a few times. I kept trying and trying. It just would go right to voicemail. So.
Yeah, it's Verizon. Verizon sucks big time.
One thing we were talking about, Wilbur, is we're kind of going all over the place. But how about your thoughts on this X-37 project and this Black Knight satellite?
Well, we've got all these high-end technologies going up, and they're not telling us about it. But chances are, most of what's in space is derivative extraterrestrial technology. We're assimilating just like the board. So I'm not surprised of the new tech that's going up and the advancements of everything that it is as it is being developed.
Yeah, they don't come out and tell us about too much of this stuff.
They're not going to tell you anything. Just like the White House, their opinion on ET and ET cover-up is that it does not exist. But like I'm showing you on a nightly basis, it does indeed exist.
Wilbur, do you think that the government is actually working hand-in-hand with some alien entities?
Well, looking at the history of it all, I would believe so, because, we've had presidents that had verbal contact with extraterrestrials, starting with President Eisenhower. So, think about all of the things that transpired in the past that we know nothing about and is still held as a secret. It is still taking place today.
Do you think with these, and I've heard that on a couple of occasions with Roosevelt. I've even read some stuff about with Truman. Do you believe that these are the alien grays that everyone talks about, or do you think they could be a hybrid? Or, we always talk about, when we talk about extraterrestrials, we always immediately go to the grays or the reptilians, but could be beings that look just like you and me, and you couldn't tell the difference walking down the street.
Well, that is indeed the case, because I've had an encounter with what I thought to be an extraterrestrial that was a modification of a human and a gray. So there are hybrids out there, and humans have been crossbred with extraterrestrials for thousands of years. So it's all now starting to come to light, and it's starting to be more prevalent in terms of reality.
Wilbur, do you think that the extraterrestrials had a hand in ancient civilizations like Egypt and their providing technology?
They did. If you look at the most of the hieroglyphics associated to the construction of the pyramids, it suggests that the pyramids were built by giants. That's what it suggests, and it basically should boil down to that, because there's history and evidence of people who were in the olden days considered giants.
Yeah. Well, I know there's so many different theories with the pyramids. I just at that time I just can't see with the technology that we had at that time they could build such a feat is the pyramids of Gaza.
When you think about it couldn't be conventional technology that constructed them, because when one block of a pyramid weighs 100,000 tons, and there are 1,000 blocks associated or more associated to a pyramid, then it would take a little bit more than the conventional human to do that level of construction, and it would require a level of technology far more advanced than what we have today to be able to mill a block out of a mountain and mill it with such perfection that you can stick a piece of paper in between the creases of the pyramid and it fits perfectly. It's impossible. That level of technology does not exist today.
Right, exactly. Do you think a lot of, and I know what your answer is going to be, but I want to hear it anyway, with reverse engineering, do you think a lot of the advances we've made in technology come from the future, come from...
It comes from everything we have comes from reverse engineering. Cell phones, optic fiber, laser technology, all was derived from Roswell. So without a doubt, we are being evolved into a more advanced state with the help of extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I believe that a lot of our technology could have come from Roswell and other crashes, and I believe that if an agent is very careful, he could have easily placed the idea, just the idea alone, that these technologies exist, place the ideas into the hands of the corporate world, give them the idea, and they work on it. I was looking closely at laser technologies. I was going through Wikipedia because I felt there might be some indications of that going on. And sure enough, if you look closely, the first time a laser actually was fired up and able to be demonstrated was 1947.
Yeah.
And they took that laser from crashed spacecraft. So, I mean, there's been reverse engineering over the years, and without a doubt that the reverse engineering associated to everything that we have is surveillance. My cell phone is alien technology. Your radio station, more than likely, is alien technology. It is all based on alien technology.
So, Wilbur, do you think that most of these black triangles and boomerang-type craft are actually ours?
Well, the black triangles I know for a fact are ours because there's a secret program. There are 6 of those craft based on some kind of anti-gravity light-based propulsion technology. But, and when we look at those reports are consistent with most of the reports that were reported over a course of time, and everybody's reporting the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you when you start seeing a mass number of sightings, and they're all physical sightings, and they're with triangular objects, and the triangular objects are all the same, and if you look at the secret programs that we have in the United States military, especially Air Force projects, that those triangular objects are a part of their repertoire.
How far back do you think this goes?
Possibly 1960s, 1950s. I would know 1960s for sure because they developed, from what I understand, 5 various craft, and the variations are obvious. Each one is totally different in terms of its overall characteristics, but without a doubt, they have 5 of these triangular objects in operation right now.
Yeah, I've heard that they achieved our government, whatever, secret ops. They achieved anti-gravity with the help of these crash saucers. They achieved it by 1954.
I got to stop you for a second. I got to take an NBC news break. Can we keep all 3 for another go-around?
Sure.
Okay. You're listening to Fringe Radio here on K-Talk, KTKK AM 630 in Sandy, Salt Lake City. Our guests, Wilbur Allen, Bill Forte, Eric Hartman. Eric, what's your last name?
Hartwig.
We'll be back on the other side of the news. Get a little something to drink. Stick around. We got a lot more to cover.